You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. The product domain is the discipline of translating vision and intent into sequenced backlogs, evidence-based decisions, and validated outcomes. It is where strategy meets the practical work of building increments that matter to users and stakeholders. The orientation of this domain emphasizes flow. Ideas move from discovery into definition, from backlog into increments, and from release into validation, with each stage informing the next. Unlike traditional approaches where products are defined in thick documents and frozen roadmaps, the product domain thrives on adaptability. Teams learn by doing, using small increments to test assumptions and refine direction. This keeps outcomes aligned with real needs rather than imagined ones. A strong product domain prevents drift into building outputs that look productive but fail to deliver value. Done well, it transforms uncertainty into insight, sequencing work, so that each slice is both useful now and informative for what comes next. The scope of the product domain is often misunderstood. It does not treat discovery, definition, and delivery as separate phases, but as parts of a continuous loop. Discovery brings research and observation, definition frames problems and acceptance criteria, and delivery executes in increments. Each feeds the other. Discovery without delivery becomes theory, while delivery without discovery risks waste. In practice, this loop looks like alternating cycles of questioning and proving. A team may begin with a hypothesis about user behavior, define a small slice to test it, deliver the increment, and then use the evidence to redefine priorities. The point is not to lock assumptions early, but to evolve decisions as new insights arrive. This rhythm preserves agility, as teams avoid clinging to outdated plans. Over time, the loop builds confidence. Every step generates data that shapes the next, ensuring product direction remains tethered to reality. Value focus is the North Star of product decisions. In this domain, value is defined broadly. It includes user benefit, risk reduction, and compliance fulfillment, not just revenue or features. Every backlog item, acceptance condition, and release choice is evaluated against its contribution to these outcomes. For example, fixing a security vulnerability is valuable because it reduces systemic risk, just as launching a new feature is valuable because it increases adoption. By keeping value central, teams resist the trap of feature factories, where outputs are produced without questioning impact. Value orientation also keeps compliance meaningful. Controls are not afterthoughts but integral to trust and sustainability. In practice, this means constantly asking, how will this slice improve outcomes we care about? Over time, a value-first culture ensures that scarce capacity is invested wisely, aligning product flow with organizational goals and user needs rather than vanity metrics. Stakeholder partnership is essential to keeping product work credible and balanced. Users, sponsors, and risk partners must be involved early and consistently, not brought in only at reviews. Their perspectives illuminate constraints and goals that shape good decisions. For example, a compliance officer can highlight regulatory boundaries before a feature is designed, avoiding costly rework. Similarly, users can validate assumptions about needs, while sponsors align outcomes with funding and strategy. Partnership is not about consensus, but about informed trade-offs. It replaces proxy decision-making with authentic input. In practice, this looks like joint backlog refinement sessions, regular user interviews, and structured forums with sponsors. The benefit is twofold: better decisions and stronger trust. Stakeholders see that their perspectives matter, while teams avoid surprises from unseen constraints. Over time, partnership normalizes collaboration, turning product work into a shared endeavor rather than a siloed exercise. The backlog serves as the single source of truth for the product domain. It consolidates all inflows, ideas, defects, risks, enablers into a visible, ordered queue. By unifying everything in one place, The backlog eliminates fragmented lists scattered across teams and tools. This transparency prevents shadow priorities and ensures everyone sees the same reality. Backlog items are not promises but options, sequenced based on impact and uncertainty. For example, a defect affecting user trust may rise to the top, while a long-term enabler sits lower until dependencies align. The backlog evolves continuously, reflecting new learning and priorities. Its visibility also fosters accountability. When trade-offs are made, they are evident to all. Over time, the backlog becomes more than a task list. It is a living representation of intent and evidence, guiding teams in turning vision into value. Its clarity keeps focus sharp even as facts change. Item clarity standards prevent waste and misinterpretation. Each backlog item should contain problem statements, user context, and acceptance criteria. This ensures that slices are testable, purposeful, and linked to outcomes. For example, an item might state, "As a new user, I need faster onboarding so that I can complete setup in under 5 minutes." Acceptance, average time reduced to less than 300 seconds in pilot tests. This clarity avoids ambiguous work tickets like improve onboarding, which invite rework and conflict. Standards also keep the backlog aligned with intent. Every item connects directly to value. Clarity does not mean excessive detail. Lightweight but precise framing is enough. Over time, this practice accelerates flow, as teams spend less time debating intent during delivery. It also builds trust with stakeholders, who see that backlog items reflect genuine needs, not vague placeholders. Clarity ensures that every slice contributes meaningfully to learning or benefit. Decomposition practices break down large ideas into thin, end-to-end slices. Rather than delivering a massive feature in one risky lump, teams slice functionality so that each increment provides utility or reduces uncertainty. For example, an automated reporting system Epic might first be sliced into Generate One template report for pilot users. Thin slices validate assumptions quickly, such as whether users even want automated reports. This reduces risk and accelerates feedback. Decomposition also prevents overcommitment, as each slice represents a bounded investment with visible value. In practice, decomposition is iterative. Epics are split into features, features into user stories, and stories into tasks, with constant focus on testability. Over time, this discipline creates a rhythm of steady progress, where learning compounds without betting everything on unvalidated assumptions. It ensures that product evolution is incremental, safe, and adaptive, anchored in evidence rather than speculation. Sizing approaches help teams forecast responsibly in the face of variability. Instead of relying on exact estimates, relative sizing compares backlog items to each other. Teams might use t-shirt sizes, story points, or other relative measures to express effort and risk. For example, a new login feature may be considered medium compared to a large data migration. This comparative approach improves forecasting by balancing uncertainty. It also reduces debates over false precision, focusing attention on trade-offs rather than perfection in estimation. Relative sizing helps teams make responsible selections for increments, choosing a mix of sizes that fits capacity. Over time, historical data validates and calibrates sizing practices, improving predictability. The aim is not to eliminate variability but to make it visible and manageable. This fosters realism. Teams acknowledge uncertainty while still providing useful forecasts to stakeholders, building trust through transparency rather than overconfidence. Prioritization principles guide decisions when capacity is limited. Teams weigh backlog items by balancing value, cost of delay, feasibility, and dependencies. For example, an item that delivers moderate value but prevents costly rework may be prioritized over a glamorous feature with uncertain adoption. Cost of delay frames urgency. What is the impact if we wait? Feasibility ensures that high-value but impossible ideas do not clog the queue. Dependency awareness prevents sequencing bottlenecks. Prioritization is not a single formula, but a disciplined conversation anchored in criteria rather than politics. Over time, this approach reduces churn as stakeholders see transparent reasoning behind choices. It also aligns work with strategy, ensuring that product flow advances outcomes rather than local interests. Prioritization principles transform the backlog from a wish list into a navigational tool, helping teams steer capacity wisely in dynamic environments. Increment goals define the purpose of each delivery window. Without them, demos risk becoming random showcases of activity. A clear increment goal might be to deliver user benefit, such as enable users to export reports, or to generate learning, such as test adoption of new interface flow. By stating the goal explicitly, acceptance and demos evaluate the right thing, either outcome achieved or hypothesis tested. This practice also keeps stakeholders aligned, reducing confusion about why certain slices were chosen. Increment goals anchor focus, ensuring teams do not confuse motion with progress. Over time, consistent goal setting improves rhythm as each iteration is purposeful and evaluable. It also strengthens learning. When goals are framed as experiments, evidence is gathered systematically. Increment goals transform increments from arbitrary batches of work into deliberate steps toward validated value, reinforcing the product domain's emphasis on evidence-driven flow. Validation methods close the loop by confirming whether increments met intent. They combine telemetry, user feedback, and operational signals. For example, if the goal was faster onboarding, telemetry might show reduced setup times, user surveys might confirm satisfaction, and support tickets might indicate fewer drop-offs. Validation ensures increments are not judged solely by delivery but by effect. It also guides next steps. Strong adoption may justify scaling, while weak signals may prompt redesign. Validation embeds humility. Teams accept that not every idea will succeed. Over time, this practice builds a culture where learning is celebrated as much as delivery. It reduces waste by quickly pruning ineffective approaches and amplifying successful ones. Validation transforms product delivery into a feedback system, ensuring that effort consistently aligns with real-world outcomes rather than internal assumptions. Non-functional expectations are embedded directly into the product domain. Reliability, security, and accessibility are treated as outcomes, not afterthoughts. This means that backlog items include not only functional requirements, but also quality conditions. For example, a login feature must not only authenticate users but also enforce encryption and meet accessibility standards. Embedding non-functionals ensures that value includes trust and sustainability. Ignoring them may deliver features quickly, but at the cost of user confidence or regulatory failure. Over time, integrating non-functional expectations raises baseline quality across products. It signals to stakeholders that speed does not compromise responsibility. In practice, this integration may mean automated tests for security, accessibility reviews, or performance monitoring included in definition of done. The product domain treats these qualities as inseparable from value, ensuring that delivered increments are both useful and trustworthy. Transparency artifacts make intent visible and accessible. Roadmaps, vision statements, and decision logs are published in shared repositories, so stakeholders can see not just what is planned but why. For example, a roadmap expressed in themes shows direction without locking features, while decision logs explain trade-offs. Transparency prevents rumor and aligns expectations. It also empowers distributed teams, who can access the same information without relying on proximity. Over time, transparency artifacts reduce churn, as questions about purpose or priorities are answered by accessible records. They also preserve organizational memory. When stakeholders rotate, the rationale behind past choices remains clear. Transparency transforms product communication from sporadic updates into continuous visibility. It reinforces trust, showing that product work is not hidden but open to inspection, learning, and alignment by all. Governance alignment integrates compliance and traceability into product decisions. Rather than treating governance as a separate gate, the product domain embeds lightweight evidence into backlog items and decisions. For example, acceptance criteria may include regulatory conditions, and decision logs may include compliance notes. This alignment ensures that audits are satisfied without stalling flow. It also reframes governance as supportive. Evidence reinforces product credibility rather than obstructing delivery. Over time, this practice reduces tension between agility and regulation. Stakeholders see that product teams can move quickly while still maintaining accountability. Governance alignment protects the integrity of the product domain, ensuring that adaptability does not erode compliance. It makes evidence part of normal work, embedding trustworthiness into every increment and backlog decision. Anti-pattern awareness helps teams avoid traps that undermine the product domain. Feature factories churn out outputs without evidence of value. Proxy-only user input leads to blind decisions that ignore real needs. Metrics focused solely on output volume obscure whether outcomes improved. Conflict often arises when these anti-patterns dominate. As stakeholders realize, motion is not delivering progress. By naming and avoiding them, teams protect credibility. For example, shifting from counting features shipped to measuring adoption ensures focus on impact. Over time, awareness builds cultural maturity. Teams learn to recognize when they are drifting toward vanity outputs and self-correct. Anti-pattern vigilance sustains the integrity of the product domain, keeping discovery, definition, and delivery aligned to purpose. It ensures that the backlog reflects genuine value, not empty productivity, reinforcing the principle that product work exists to improve outcomes, not to check boxes. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Discovery delivery integration is a defining feature of the product domain. Traditional models often separate research and experimentation from build and release, creating delays and disconnects. In a healthy product cadence, discovery and delivery run together. Research feeds slices into the backlog, which are built and tested in increments, while delivered increments create data that shapes the next round of discovery. For example, usability testing during a sprint may validate assumptions about an interface before code is scaled, while operational telemetry from released features confirms whether reliability meets expectations. This integration ensures learning is timely. Insights arrive in the same rhythm as delivery decisions. It also reduces the risk of outdated research driving irrelevant features. Over time, discovery-delivery integration creates a virtuous loop, where every increment informs direction, blending theory and practice. The result is faster learning, stronger alignment, and fewer wasted cycles chasing outdated assumptions. Prioritization forums provide structured spaces where customers and stakeholders join trade-off discussions. Rather than prioritization being a closed-door exercise, forums invite relevant voices to weigh options against clear criteria. For example, a prioritization session may compare backlog items based on cost of delay, feasibility, and risk reduction, with customers highlighting adoption concerns and compliance officers clarifying regulatory needs. This transparency prevents hidden vetoes and political jockeying. It also strengthens trust. Stakeholders see their perspectives integrated into visible trade-offs. Forums are not about pleasing everyone but about making informed decisions in the open. Over time, they shift culture from negotiation behind the scenes to principled prioritization in shared forums. This inclusivity increases acceptance of outcomes, even when compromises are tough. It ensures that backlog sequencing reflects organizational priorities, user realities, and risk constraints, not just the loudest internal voices. Roadmap expression reframes planning away from rigid feature lists. Instead of locking commitments too early, modern roadmaps present themes, outcomes, and learning milestones. For example, a roadmap might highlight improve retention as a theme, with milestones like validate onboarding drop-off and pilot personalized recommendations. This approach preserves direction without overpromising specifics. It also acknowledges uncertainty, leaving room for adaptation as evidence emerges. Roadmaps expressed in this way keep stakeholders engaged with the bigger picture, why the work matters, while allowing teams flexibility to adjust how outcomes are pursued. Over time, roadmap expression reduces late-stage reversals caused by unrealistic promises. It also improves trust, as stakeholders learn that what is promised is directionally accurate and adaptable. Roadmaps shift from brittle predictions to living guides, aligning vision with flow while avoiding the illusion of certainty in complex environments. Dependency visibility prevents late surprises that derail product flow. Products rarely exist in isolation. They rely on platforms, APIs, vendors, or cross-team integrations. Mapping these dependencies early makes sequencing realistic. For example, a new feature might depend on a data pipeline upgrade owned by another team, or a vendor API may need contract updates before scaling. By making these dependencies explicit, teams can plan sequencing responsibly and reduce frustration when blockers appear. Visibility also fosters collaboration. Teams coordinate proactively rather than reactively. Over time, dependency mapping builds resilience. It allows product teams to avoid bottlenecks and identify systemic gaps, such as recurring shortages of shared capacity. By integrating dependency awareness into backlog and roadmap practices, the product domain ensures that flow remains steady. It prevents avoidable delays and reinforces trust, proving that teams manage not just their slice, but the wider ecosystem they depend on. Enabler work earns priority in the product domain because it accelerates multiple outcomes or reduces systemic risk. Too often, tooling, data improvements, or architecture upgrades are neglected in favor of visible features. However, enablers provide leverage. They reduce future cost and increase adaptability. For example, automating deployment pipelines may not deliver immediate user benefit, but it accelerates every future release. Similarly, investing in observability may reduce outages across products. Prioritizing enablers acknowledges that sustainable value requires infrastructure. This means balancing backlog content so enablers sit alongside user stories, not hidden in technical wish lists. Over time, giving enabler work its rightful place prevents burnout and builds scalability. It signals maturity. Product flow is not just about short-term delivery but about investing in the foundation. By treating enablers as first-class backlog items, the domain ensures adaptability and resilience across the portfolio. Release readiness ensures that shipped increments are safe, observable, and reversible. It goes beyond "does the feature work" to ask whether the system as a whole is ready. Readiness pairs acceptance evidence with operability checks, monitoring, logging, and rollback paths. For example, a new authentication service may pass functional tests, but must also prove it can be rolled back if failures spike. By embedding readiness practices, teams avoid risky, all-or-nothing launches. Readiness makes value observable. Telemetry confirms whether the release delivers benefit, while safety nets protect against harm. Over time, readiness discipline reduces incidents and builds confidence in delivery. It also speeds flow. Paradoxically, by ensuring safety, teams can release smaller increments more often, knowing that failures are reversible. Release readiness embeds trust, proving that value delivery is both responsible and resilient in real-world conditions. Benefit realization tracks whether delivered increments produce durable outcomes. Immediate signals like click-through rates or reduced defects are useful but can be misleading if they fade quickly. Realization connects increments to longer-term measures such as retention, risk posture, or compliance reliability. For example, adding an onboarding tutorial may initially boost completion, but must be tracked over months to confirm adoption holds. Separating short-lived signals from durable impact prevents false confidence. It also informs strategy. Only by measuring benefit over time can organizations know which bets paid off. Over time, benefit realization builds a culture where success is defined by outcomes, not just output. It also refines prioritization, as teams learn which types of work yield the most durable value. This practice closes the loop, turning delivery into evidence for strategic learning across the organization. Feedback cadences ensure insight arrives in time to influence upcoming slices. Stakeholder reviews, user touchpoints, and operational dashboards are scheduled at regular intervals. For example, sprint reviews may highlight adoption signals, while quarterly user councils provide broader market perspective. The point is timing. Feedback must arrive before the next increment is locked, not after. Cadences reduce the risk of wasted investment by ensuring learning is continuous and actionable. They also build transparency. Stakeholders see progress and influence direction in predictable forums. Over time, feedback cadences embed trust. They normalize reflection as part of flow, not a special event. This rhythm also accelerates learning, as teams avoid long feedback deserts that allow misalignment to fester. Feedback cadences turn product work into a constant dialogue between makers and stakeholders, ensuring that direction evolves with evidence. Adaptation triggers define when new evidence justifies reordering, scope change, or pivot. Without clear triggers, teams risk either clinging to outdated plans or shifting constantly under noise. Triggers provide balance. They specify thresholds that warrant adjustment. For example, if defect rates exceed a defined level, resilience work moves to the top of the backlog. If adoption falls below a target, scope may pivot. By making triggers explicit, adaptation becomes principled rather than arbitrary. This transparency builds trust. Stakeholders see that pivots are evidence-driven, not whims. It also protects integrity, as goals are not abandoned at the first headwind, but adjusted when data meets criteria. Over time, adaptation triggers build resilience, embedding learning as a normal part of flow. They ensure that product direction remains aligned with outcomes, even as facts evolve, balancing flexibility with discipline. Portfolio linkage connects product learning to organizational strategy. Increments generate evidence, and that evidence informs portfolio-level choices. For example, if a pilot demonstrates that adoption depends on platform stability, portfolio investment may shift toward shared infrastructure. Linking ensures that local learning scales systemically, avoiding fragmentation. Portfolio linkage also synchronizes cross-team dependencies, coordinating investments in shared platforms. This elevates product work from isolated delivery to strategic input. Over time, portfolio linkage builds coherence. Organizational strategy evolves with evidence, and product teams see their work influence direction. It prevents gaps where local successes fail to scale or systemic risks go unaddressed. Portfolio linkage reinforces the idea that product domain is not an isolated function, but the engine of organizational learning, feeding strategy with validated outcomes and practical insight. Risk management is integrated into the backlog, not treated as a separate checklist. Assumptions, leading indicators, and mitigations appear alongside user stories and enablers. For example, a backlog item may state, test failover response time. Assumption, recovery under 5 minutes. By embedding risk directly, teams ensure it shapes sequencing and acceptance. Leading indicators, such as rising latency or defect rates, are tracked as part of product flow. This integration prevents risk from being ignored until late reviews. It also normalizes responsibility. Risk is everyone's work, not just compliance officers. Over time, this approach builds resilience, as teams learn to treat risk as a dynamic input rather than a static constraint. It also accelerates compliance, as evidence of risk management is already captured in backlog artifacts. Integrated risk transforms product delivery into a system that is both fast and safe. Vendor and partner coordination ensures that external interfaces align with product intent. Many increments depend on APIs, contracts, or services outside the team's direct control. Coordination involves aligning demo cadences, contract updates, and evidence expectations with product flow. For example, if a release depends on a vendor's new API, joint demos confirm readiness before integration. This reduces rework caused by misaligned schedules or hidden constraints. Partner coordination also builds resilience. External dependencies are managed transparently rather than discovered late. Over time, this practice strengthens ecosystems of collaboration. Vendors and partners become extensions of product teams, sharing responsibility for outcomes. Coordination ensures that boundaries do not derail flow but instead reinforce reliability. It demonstrates maturity. Product value is not delivered in isolation but through networks of aligned contributors across organizational borders. Remote and distributed product practices embed inclusivity into product flow. Written context, decision logs, and recorded demos ensure that all voices participate without ceremony overload. For example, decision rationales may be posted asynchronously, allowing global teams to review and comment. Recorded demos preserve transparency for those unable to attend live. These practices reduce inequities between co-located and distributed members, ensuring that alignment is global. They also improve clarity. Written artifacts force precision, while recorded materials create durable memory. Over time, distributed practices strengthen trust and participation. Teams learn that geography does not determine influence. Remote-friendly product flow demonstrates that evidence, transparency, and inclusivity are stronger than location. It keeps collaboration scalable, ensuring that global teams deliver value together. Success evidence for the product domain confirms whether principles are working. Indicators include faster time to validated learning, improved adoption or risk posture, and fewer late-stage reversals. For example, if backlog items consistently yield measurable outcomes within weeks, success is proven. If compliance gaps decrease because non-functional standards are embedded, resilience is strengthened. Success is not just activity but outcomes, better alignment, reduced waste, and stronger stakeholder confidence. Over time, this evidence validates the product domain as the engine of reliable value delivery. It proves that a visible backlog, outcome-first decisions, thin slices, and evidence-driven adaptation transform intent into results. Success evidence keeps focus on impact, not volume, demonstrating that agility delivers not only faster outputs, but also more trustworthy outcomes. Product domain synthesis emphasizes the centrality of the backlog, outcome-first decisions, and evidence-driven adaptation. Discovery and delivery integrate into a continuous loop, with prioritization guided by transparent forums and principled criteria. Roadmaps frame direction through themes and milestones, while dependencies and enablers ensure flow is resilient. Release readiness and benefit realization confirm outcomes safely, while feedback cadences and adaptation triggers keep direction responsive. Portfolio linkage and integrated risk management connect local learning to strategy, and remote practices make inclusivity scalable. Together, these elements create a system where intent flows into validated value, with trust, resilience, and adaptability embedded at every step. The product domain is the heartbeat of agile practice, turning uncertainty into insight and strategy into outcomes that users and stakeholders can trust. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.